For 2 millennia, the name Vikramaditya has served as the definitive archetype of the perfect Indian ruler. His image persists across South Asian culture as an immortal symbol of authority and statecraft. The modern Indian state leverages this legacy to project power. The Navy's flagship aircraft carrier bears his name, anchoring national sea power to his historical weight. His influence extends across borders. In Nepal, the official state calendar, used for all legal and administrative matters, is the Bikram Sambat, carrying his title. The traditional narrative supporting this massive footprint makes specific claims. Vikramaditya was a king of Ujjain in the 1st century BCE. He liberated his territory by defeating the invading Shakas and established a new era in 57 BCE to commemorate his victory. We have a globally recognized calendar, modern military flagships, and a highly specific date of victory. Yet, when historians search the physical strata of the 1st century BCE for a king named Vikramaditya ruling from Ujjain, they find a total absence of evidence. To confirm an ancient monarch existed, academic rigor requires contemporary physical evidence. Historians look for epigraphy, inscriptions carved into stone or copper plates, and numismatics, the minting of state coinage. This map illustrates India's political landscape during the 1st century BCE. Artifacts definitively place the Shunga, Kanvas, and Indo-Greeks in their territories, but isolating Ujjain during this exact time frame reveals a glaring archaeological void. No coins, pillars, or inscriptions bear the name Vikramaditya. Ancient literature also corroborates this physical silence. The Puranas contain meticulous, extensive genealogies of significant Indian kings. They do not record a Vikramaditya ruling from Ujjain at any point prior to the Gupta era, hundreds of years later. The archaeological record presents a fundamental paradox. While his name is everywhere in the present, he is entirely missing from the 1st century landscape where he supposedly ruled. This disconnect forces us to look past Ujjain and search for how this character was constructed. The mythos of Vikramaditya was built intentionally, utilizing literature as a form of didactic statecraft. This profile was primarily engineered through 2 opposed yet complementary story cycles. The first is the Vitala Panchavimshati, or the 25 Tales of the Vitala. In this cycle, the king is tasked with capturing a reanimated corpse, which repeatedly halts his progress to pose complex, deadly riddles. This node-based logic flowchart breaks down the structure of the text. It operates as a continuous feedback loop. The king acts, the Vitala introduces a dilemma, the king reasons through the specific ethics, and the Vitala responds based on his answer. The cycle maps the epistemology of human wisdom. Vikramaditya serves as an intellectual vehicle, demonstrating to the reader how an ideal ruler parses ambiguity and balances competing moral duties in real time. The second text is structurally opposed to the first, the Simhasana Dwatrimsika, or the 32 Throne Tales. This cycle takes place centuries later and features the historical King Bhoja attempting to sit on Vikramaditya's long-lost throne. This linear flowchart illustrates the inverse structure of the Throne Tales. King Bhoja attempts to advance toward the seat of power, but is repeatedly blocked by 32 statues. Each statue functions as a strict gating mechanism, testing Bhoja against a specific virtue of Vikramaditya. In every single encounter, Bhoja acknowledges his own inferiority. He is never allowed to sit. The text defines an absolute, unreachable benchmark of royal virtue that subsequent historical kings must continuously measure themselves against. These cycles are highly engineered philosophical engines. Together, they define the exact parameters of perfect governance, active intellectual rigor paired with an unattainable standard of moral purity. Once that perfect literary profile was established, the archetype became highly valuable. Diverse regional and religious factions actively fought to claim the fictional Ujjain king as their own. By the 12th century, Jain scholars began assimilating the myth. Writers like Siddhasana Divakara authored adaptations asserting that Vikramaditya was converted to Jainism, co-opting the ideal ruler to validate their own religious authority. Jain texts also mapped Vikramaditya onto a fierce political and linguistic rivalry with King Shalivahana of Pratishtana. In these accounts, the 2 kings fight over territory, but also over the supremacy of Sanskrit versus the Prakrit language. Further south, medieval Tamil legends integrated the emperor into entirely different theological frameworks, assigning him the 32 physical marks of a universal monarch. In one prominent Tamil cycle, Vikramaditya performs a variant of the Navakandam rite. To appease the 8 Bhairavas and the goddess Kamakshi, he willingly offers to sever his own body in 9 different places. His extreme willingness to sacrifice himself for divine favor has a specific narrative outcome. The goddess is so moved by his piety that she explicitly abolishes the practice of human sacrifice forever. These factions weaponized a fictional king. By adapting his legends, regional authors localized his universal authority, using the ghost of Vikramaditya to legitimize their own theological shifts and territorial claims. If we dig beneath the layers of medieval regional propaganda and the didactic literary engines, we finally hit the historical bedrock of the myth, the monarchs of the Gupta Empire in the 4th and 5th centuries CE. The primary source material for the folklore is Chandragupta II. It was Chandragupta II who historically conquered Ujjain, and it was Chandragupta II who successfully defeated the invading Shakas. This ancient gold coin serves as the definitive numismatic proof of his reign and his deliberate myth-making. Following his victory over the Shakas, Chandragupta II officially adopted the imperial title Vikramaditya, meaning the son of valor. The folklore pulls achievements from other Gupta rulers as well to pad the resume of the fictional king. For example, local legends credit Vikramaditya with rediscovering the lost sacred city of Ayodhya. This narrative point perfectly maps on to the verifiable actions of Skandagupta. Skandagupta also adopted the title Vikramaditya and historically moved his capital to the city of Saketa, renaming it Ayodhya. The Vikramaditya of popular tradition is a heavily transposed, compressed account. Multiple historical Gupta monarchs and their specific geopolitical victories were consolidated into a single, invincible literary figure. This leaves one final paradox. If the mythology is based entirely on Gupta kings from the 4th and 5th century CE, how did a calendar era beginning in 57 BCE end up bearing his name? This horizontal timeline traces the origins of that specific dating system. The era beginning in 57 BCE was not founded by a king at all. Epigraphic records originally identify it as the Krita era, or the era of the Malava tribe. As the timeline advances, the calendar remains in active use as a republican tracking system. It survives for centuries, operating well past the Gupta period, entirely devoid of any association with the king Vikramaditya. The anomaly occurs here, in the 9th century CE. Only then does the Malava tribal label disappear, replaced in the historical record by the term Vikramasamvat. This renaming was a retroactive alignment. Later generations inherited a fully formed, towering mythology of the ultimate king, and actively mapped his name onto an ancient, pre-existing timeline to legitimize the myth. The stratigraphy is clear. We start with the modern cultural footprint, dig through the medieval layers of Tamil and Jain regional propaganda, bypass the highly structured didactic engines of the Vetala and Throne Tales, and finally reach the epigraphic bedrock of Gupta-era conquests. Vikramaditya's true historical legacy is not a buried skeleton waiting to be unearthed in Ujjain. It is the enduring mechanism by which India successfully synthesized real imperial history with didactic literature to create an immortal template for the ideal ruler.